Give folks a minute or so to start joining us here for the Let's Have Lunch. So thank you all for joining us. We'll just give it another minute or so to get started as people start to sign on. And I'll remind everybody that this is being recorded. So if you like what you see, or if you want to share it, please check it out on YouTube afterwards. All right, so as folks are starting to join us, I will get started to be respectful of everybody's time. Good afternoon and welcome to Let's Have Lunch. My name is Trish McFarland. I'm the president of the Delaware County Chamber of Commerce, and we're thrilled to be able to present this afternoon with Williamson. The Chamber is a membership-based organization, and we have developed a tremendous relationship with Williamson, and we're glad to be able to share their story and what's happening at this little gem here in Delaware County. This afternoon, we have Mike Rounds, who is president of Williamson College of the Trades, and Bill Bonenberger, 79. He's the CEO and founder of WB Homes, Inc., and he is also the board chair at Williamson. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mike and Bill, and I would like to also welcome Arlene, who is, has been integral in putting this all together this afternoon. Thank you all for being with us this afternoon, and I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Trish, and we really appreciate the opportunity to take part in this lunchtime seminar. My name is Mike Rounds. I'm the president of Williamson. I've been the president now. This is my 7th year. Prior to that, I spent 25 years as an officer in the United States Army. So grew up in the Midwest and went to West Point, graduated from there, and served in the Army Corps of Engineers. And that included a couple of stints getting to be on the faculty at West Point and teaching mechanical engineering to the cadets. And then my last job was the deputy commandant of the West Point Prep School. And as I was considering what to do, after I retired from the Army, as I was coming up, I talked to a headhunter, and he, about educational leadership jobs. And he said, well, I work with a lot of academy professors and work with some different schools, and we'll keep you in mind. And so at one point he called and he said, I've got this really unique school out near Philadelphia. He said, I've done the search for the last 2 presidents, and they were both retired colonels from the Air Force. So it's run like a military school. There's a faith component. They have chapel every day. And it's a trade-focused school. And I said, I've never heard of it. But when I went out to visit campus the first time, I just fell in love with it right away. And the reason I fell in love with it was the young men that I met there that were the students. So it felt familiar to me because, as you'll find out, the schools run almost on a military model of structure and discipline. And so I retired from the Army in 2013, and that summer moved to Williamson and started as president there. And 7 years into it, I just really love everything about it and love the mission. And so I'm just happy and pleased to be able to serve as president. So with that, I'll turn it over to our chairman and my boss, Bill Bonenberger, who can introduce himself.
I graduated in 1979, so that's 41 years ago. I graduated out of the masonry shop. After leaving Williamson, I had a short stint with a home builder, national home builder. Then in 1986, along with my wife, started our own home building company. So we've been building communities throughout Bucks and Montgomery counties for 34 years, and probably have built north of 3,000 homes. And we continue to do that to this day. We've got about 50 employees, and everything I learned at Williamson is literally the foundation of the success of my business. And we'll get into some of those core values and so forth as we get into the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a couple slides to run through with you, and then we'll go through those, kind of explaining Williamson, and then we'll have some time for questions and answers once we do that. So go ahead to the next slide, Jacqueline. So you see the guys standing there. The next slide is our mission, and that is to prepare qualified young men to be respected leaders and productive members of society. Next slide. There's a little history about Williamson College of the Trades. Williamson, Isaiah Van Sant Williamson was one of the wealthiest men in Philadelphia in the 1800s. He was a Quaker, but also lived by very modest means and did not spend a lot of money on himself at all. But what he did do was he was very philanthropic, and he gave a lot of money to orphanages and other charities in Philadelphia, a lot of it anonymously. But at the age of 85, he was seeing these young men in the streets of Philadelphia, and he said, I see these young men with no purpose in life and no chance, and I want to build a school where free of charge they can get training in a trade, and education, moral and religious development and growth, and exercise and recreation become useful, respected members of society. When he wrote that deed of trust in 1888, in December of 1888, and by March of 89, he had passed away. And he left $1 million or so to endow the school and almost $1 million to build it in those two different funds. And $1 million in today's dollars is about 70, 80 million. So they had a big competition in Philadelphia. 5 prominent architects submitted designs, and Frank Furness was the architect that was chosen. And people that know architecture know Frank Furness is a famous American architect. And Williamson, in addition to all the other things that are amazing about it, is the largest collection of furnace architecture anywhere. And so we are a state historical site, and hopefully as of this fall, we'll be accepted onto the National Historic Register for the unique nature of the school, but also for the furnace architecture that it makes the campus so beautiful. So as you see on the slide there, what's unique about Williamson? First of all, it's a 3-year junior college. So most colleges, only 2 years, associate degree. We award an accredited associate degree, but every student at Williamson has a full scholarship, tuition, room, and board for every student that's here. It's all residential, all male. We have about 250 to 270 students because basically when we bring in our freshman class, we have room for about 100, but you can't transfer into Williamson your second or third year. Come in as a group, and we try to get as many of those guys as a cohort through the 3 years to graduation 3 years later. We have 6 programs of study: carpentry, horticulture, machine tool technology, masonry and brick, paints and coatings, and power plant.
Let me jump in here a second, Mike. One of the unique things that Mike just stated is Williamson is, of more than 6,000 post-secondary colleges, universities, technical schools, etc., around the country, we are literally the only school that offers a full scholarship, inclusive of room and board, to every single student that has ever walked in the front door since 1888 to this day. So those 100 freshmen that we bring in every year, 100 to 102, every one of them gets a full scholarship. And one of the largest criteria, or most important criteria for entrance into Williamson, is a demonstrated financial need. And that is the basis of the scholarship, demonstrated financial need. Next slide.
So admissions considerations, I hope we get that slide up, but Bill touched on it a little bit. We have usually around 400 applicants, and to be an applicant at Williamson, you have to come and take the ASVAB test, as mentioned there, and meet the minimums on that test and tour through the 6 programs. If you meet the minimums on the test, you're invited back and for a couple of interviews, just to make sure that you understand that this is a challenging place. We're going to ask a lot of you, and that you're aware of that and confident that you can succeed. When we go into to decide then who the 100 are, we take in heavily into account these interviews, but also when we pair 400 down to 100, we start with those with the most financial need. So we have, as you see, 70+% that are Pell Grant eligible, over 60% at the max level. And most of our students, 60-some%, are first-generation college students. We look at the whole person. So we want a student that is engaged in whatever they're doing, whether that's working at a job, active in their school, their communities, whatever it is, because Williamson is a challenging path. And we're not looking for a guy that's the path of least resistance guy. We're looking for somebody that wants to accept the challenge and commit to working hard and seeing what they can make of themselves. But important also to note that no previous trade experience is required in every one of our programs. We start from the beginning. Carpentry, this is a block of wood. That's where we start with every one of our students.
Yeah, and I would say probably probably 70% of our incoming freshmen literally have no previous experience in the shop program that they are entering. They are literally learning from scratch. And you know, I was one of those people 41 years ago. Next slide.
So the next slide we're bringing up is basically a day in the life of the student at Williamson. And for most college students, they would look at this and say, what? And of course, as me being a West Point graduate, I look at it and say, isn't that how everybody did college? So 6:30 is optional breakfast. At 7:15, everybody has to be out in front of the main building on their assigned position, on their assigned brick. And we stand at attention and we raise the flag, put our hand over our heart. And then the officer of the day, who is a rotating faculty or staff member, will inspect each one of the students. And they inspect them for, make sure they have shaved, that they look good, that their shoes are shined. Every one of the students is also in coat and tie. And many of our students have never owned a coat and tie. So that's another neat thing about Williamson, is that we have a clothes closet that is donated, gently used suits, coats, and those kind of things. So anyone that comes, we don't tell them to go out and buy this stuff, but we'll have it available for you. But we expect you to be in coat and tie, looking sharp, ready to go at 7:15. From there, we go up to chapel. Mr. Williamson was a Quaker, and in the deed of trust, he wrote that moral and religious development was what he wanted in his program. And so since the beginning of the school, we have always had a morning chapel service. We start with the Pledge of Allegiance. It's about 15 minutes long. But as part of the interview process, we say, you know, we're not proselytizing, and we don't affiliate with any certain Christian religion. It is a Christian message, but that, you know, you don't have to stand up and say you believe anything, but you do have to be present and sitting in your seat at the assigned time. After chapel, we go into a block of time in the morning. Our second year students, who we call juniors, are moving into academic type classes. In the shops in the morning, and then the seniors and freshmen, we don't have sophomores, but seniors and freshmen are in academic classes. We come together again for lunch, and then in the afternoon, we flop it. So then in the afternoon, the seniors and freshmen are together in the shops, which is a great leadership opportunity for the seniors. They actually mentor and direct the freshmen. About 4:45 or so, we break from the shops, and our varsity athletic teams, of which we have 11 intercollegiate teams, if they're in season, they'll go to practice. The other students have kind of free time to stay in the shop, do extra homework, whatever. We come together for dinner. And then we have study hours and intramurals in the evening. And then 10:30 is lights out. Every student has to reside here all 3 years. And every student has to be here from Friday night or Sunday night to Friday night. The seniors can leave campus in the afternoons and evenings a little more than the underclassmen, but they all have to be back here in their dorms at 10:30 for lights out.
So you look at that schedule, and from the time our freshmen come in August until the day they graduate, it's roughly 1,000 days, just under 3 years. And we call it the 1,000-day journey. And when you follow that rigorous schedule every day for 1,000 days, and you also are exposed and live our core values, which are faith, integrity, diligence, excellence, and service, and you hear a chapel message every morning, and not only are you in a suit, coat, and tie during your shop, but you'll see that they're all clean shaven, their hair is trimmed properly, their shoes are shined, and all those things, if they're not up to our standards, means that you get disciplinary hours. So that 1,000 days becomes basically part of who you are. These things that we, you know, the 12-hour days, 14-hour days, you know, doing multiple things and being involved in extracurriculars. It's meant to simulate real life when you get out. You know, raising a family, going to work, being involved in coaching, and all those things. That was Mr. Williamson's dream, to prepare young men to be useful and respected members of society, not necessarily just to prepare great carpenters or great masons. He wanted them to be good citizens. And that schedule is what helps them do that, that discipline that they learn over the 1,000 days. Next slide.
So as Bill mentioned, you know, one of the things that is, yes, they learn a trade, but when, he mentioned the 1,000-day journey. When you're there together as residents, you form this bond And a part of that bond is helping each other get through a very rigorous schedule. As he mentioned, attendance and punctuality are super important. If you're hiring somebody, you want them to be on time all the time. You don't ever want to have to doubt it. So if you happen to run behind in the morning and you don't make it out to the lineup pad by the time the bell rings, well, now you just lost 4 hours of your Saturday. If you forgot to shave, that's another 4 hours. So that is what, there's no optional things. If you're late to class, you're showing up on Saturday to work off hours on ground. So pretty quickly, a young man at Williamson understands that I've got to always be early. I'm on time is late, and 10 minutes early is on time. And it becomes part of who they are. We have ethics classes, and integrity is a core value. So we expect to treat each other with respect. The daily chapel service feeds into that, obviously. And another thing that is really, one of our core values too is service. So many times in the shops, the instructors will look for community service opportunities where they can hone their skills. Maybe for the brick mason or the carpenters might work at Habitat, work on certain skills. But the other thing we've done in the last 5 years is pull together in the month of May, and unfortunately we couldn't do it this year because of COVID, but we finish finals. That next week is completely dedicated to community service. And usually we go out to 30 plus different nonprofits in the area in teams of 5 or 6 students with a staff member and maybe a trustee and an alum, and they just do work. They just give back to the community, and we try to ingrain that in them. Mr. Williamson made this possible for you. You're receiving this great gift, and part of who you should be as a Williamson man is somebody that always wants to give back, wants to take advantage of opportunities to help those that need it. And we try to ingrain that through that whole community service program as we run through the school. And the leadership program, you saw in the mission statement that leadership is in our mission. Respected leaders. We are looking to develop leaders. And we do that from the very beginning when they first come in. We spend 4 or 5 days with them getting to know each other as a class in this first year experience. And we take them out on a high ropes course, and we take them to a leader reaction course, and we ingrain that in the beginning. As a freshman, you're going to be taking orders, and you're going to be looking, and you're going to be assessing other guys who are the leaders that you look up to. Who do you want to be like when you're a senior? And then by the time you go to a senior year and junior year, we take the entire class over spring break and take them out into almost like an outward bound experience in small groups, right? And the whole focus is developing as leaders for their senior year. And in the senior year, they're in the shops. They're almost assistant shop instructors for the freshmen, and they're given that responsibility. And people that know anything about leadership, it looks a lot easier than it really is. And when you communicate expectations to people, when you tell them, hey, this is how this has to be done, and then you make sure that they do it correctly and you correct it if they need it, that's a skill that develops as part of your 3-year Williamson experience.
That leadership program that Mike just described is the primary reason why Williamson is a 3-year associate degree granting institution versus a 2-year. You think of community college and other associate degree granting institutions, they're typically 2 years. That 3rd year is all about giving the seniors an opportunity to lead. And they mentor the freshmen, as Mike said, and that, they learn when they're freshmen the types of leaders that different seniors are, and what makes a good leader, what makes a leader that still needs a little bit of polish, and they get to hone those skills as a senior. And that also is one of the main reasons why our graduates are so much in demand, because so few get an opportunity, so few typical college graduates get that opportunity to experience true leadership at the college level.
Absolutely. And as you see the slide that's presented now, faith, integrity, diligence, excellence, and service. And how do we measure excellence? Well, we expect excellence from beginning. In learning their trade, if it's not done right, they start over and they do it again. And one of the ways that we measure that excellence is with the Skills USA competition. And so every year in the 5 of our shops, except for the horticulture shop, they have competitions within the shop. The winner will go on to a district and then a state level Skills USA competition. And pretty consistently, we have 6, 7, 8, 9 young men that are going to the national competition every summer. And in the past 20 years, we've had 3 national champions in carpentry. In just the past 5 years, we've had 3 silver medalists at the national level in brick masonry. And the last 2 years, we've had one of our power plant students that has got a silver medal in plumbing skills. So, you know, that's just a way of them striving for excellence and us measuring it. And then just our graduation rate. Like again, we draw from the lowest quadrant of socioeconomic young men that have the most need. And that is the group that has the hardest time getting past high school, getting any kind of post-secondary education. And despite the rigor of the program, we also have a zero tolerance policy for drugs and alcohol. So we do test, and any violation in those 3 years at any point is immediate dismissal. And there's no second chances on that. But despite all of those things that the academic challenges, the discipline challenges, all the other things, we're still graduating on average about 75% of our young men. We'd love it to be 95 or 100%, but in a place where you have high standards, sometimes folks don't make it there. But I will tell every student when they come in, if you put the effort in and you ask for help when you need it, everybody here will bend over backwards to get you where you need to be to get to the finish line. And then, so graduating 75% is great. Helping young guys that are in need is great. Giving full scholarships to get a college degree is great. But then what happens? What do you do with that degree? And that's the real beauty of what we go through in these 3 years, is because now we have 98% career placement in the trained trades. So that really is 100%. If you are interested in getting a job as a Williamson graduate, you can generally get one. Do you have anything else on that, Bill? We're going to do the career fair slide next.
Well, you know, you can tell by what Mike has said in the slides that Williamson has a pretty unique educational model. We hold our students to a very high standard, but what is amazing is when you hold young people to a higher bar, it is amazing at how quickly and readily they are willing to rise to meet that level, because they understand the importance of the things that we are teaching them, the core values, the dependability, doing the job right, and they know that those are skills that are going to benefit them the rest of their life. And it would be nice if, you know, if the rest of post-secondary education maybe learned a few of these tips from us and could hold maybe some of their students accountable as well. They might end up getting a better result. Next slide.
So next slide is really one of my favorites, and you know, everybody's looking for metrics of success, and this is one that I just point to all the time. Are you preparing these guys to be successful? Are they learning the things they need to leave and have a great job and a great career? We have so many companies that want to hire our young graduates that probably about 10 plus years ago, we decided that instead of sending seniors every day off to all these interviews, that we would open our campus twice a year for the employers to come to us, and we would provide access to our students for the purpose of hiring. And we have done that every year since. Every year it seems to grow, and you have to pay to come to the job fair. So you pay to have a table there, and you see the gym there packed full of employers. You can pay more to have additional access to students. So with 74 graduates last year, you can see the numbers. We had 198 different companies participate in one or both of our career fairs from 17 different states. It grossed the school about $70,000 in the money that they paid to be there. So one of the things that's really interesting too is a couple of years ago we said, you know, with all these companies fighting over these kids, if I'm a machinist and this company is here to hire a carpenter, maybe we don't need to waste time talking to each other because we've only got a limited amount of time. So if the employers come in, we say, if you want to hire a carpenter, put an orange dot on your sign. If you want to hire a machinist, put a red dot, or a blue dot if you want a carpenter, whatever it is. So 6 programs, 6 different colors. And every year, 40% or more of the companies will have 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 dots. And if you ask a company why do you have that many, they say, listen, I want to hire a Williamson guy. All of your programs are hands-on, and that's important. They have to, but really, if I hire a guy that I can trust, that shows up, that works hard, that I can promote quickly into a foreman, I can teach them the specifics of the job. But those character qualities are something I can't teach. And so that's the reputation of the school. And I will tell you, when I walk through with the seniors and say, look, I know you worked really hard for this opportunity, and you had a couple of days where you screwed up and you had to spend a couple Saturdays working off hours. They said, but think about the guys that you went to high school with, the guys that have another year of college and $80,000 or more in student loans and are just praying that they get a job of some kind when they graduate so they can start paying off their bills. You have an associate degree, no debt, and most of the guys are 4 or 5 job offers that they're juggling, trying to decide which one to take. So that's, to me, if you ever want to see something amazing, come down to one of our career fairs and just walk around and ask these employers from all over the country why they come all the way to Media, Pennsylvania to try to hire our guys. And they will tell you just what Bill and I are telling you right now.
Yeah, I think what's also unique is that our guys are learning a trade that will turn into a career. And I would say that a career is much different than having a job. And I think that we have found that our students are far more positive about their the possibilities in their life because of this career that they have in this training. It's portable. They can take it anywhere in the country. They can take it anywhere in the world. And our students literally go all over the country and all over the world, with their skills. We've got guys in the Middle East, in California. I mean, you name it. Our graduates are there in key positions.
Absolutely. Yeah, and this slide you're seeing now, constantly assessing and improving. I mean, that's another key point for us. So we take seriously what the employers are looking for when they come to hire. And we want to make sure that we are staying on the cutting edge of technology, and that we are making sure that our guys, the 1,000 days we have them, we're making the best use of that time to teach them the skills in all areas that they're going to need to be successful when they leave. We're constantly asking ourselves, are we preparing our graduates to be successful? We do that through taking each of our programs and bringing in experts in those fields and employers that are hiring in this program advisory council to say, what kind of skills should we be focusing on? What time should we spend on this? Less of this, more of this. In fact, we did a real deep dive the last 2 years in looking at all 6 of our programs. Most of our programs started when the school started. We added horticulture probably 25 to 30 years ago now. That was the most recent trade that we had. But we looked at, again, the job market, the needs, and also what career paths really do value having an associate's degree, having that level of education versus some that might not as much. And as a result of that, we have decided that we're actually sunsetting our paints and coatings program to be replacing it with a new electrical program. And we are on the process of not only bringing that putting that new program together so that we could bring freshmen in the fall of 2022 in this electrical program. That will also be our first major expansion in the number of students. We'll be able to bring in about 20 more freshmen, due in part to a great gift from one of our trustees, Bill Strine, to build a new dorm. And so that is pretty exciting. And each of the other 5 trades that are going to stay, we have kind of revamped the whole curriculum and added in our construction trades the opportunity for carpentry, masonry, and electric to go into a construction management type track. We find that many of our companies, big companies, are hiring guys right into those positions. They've been doing it for many years. They continue to come back and hire them. So we think that if that's something our guys are interested in, and those are great jobs, really good career paths, to give those guys a chance to focus more in those areas as they study, as they move through our program. So the other thing I'll mention is we are accredited by ACCSC, but we are moving our accreditation to Middle States Commission of Higher Education. Middle States is the regional accreditor here in the East. And this will give our guys a lot more ability to transfer credits when and if they decide to continue their education. That accreditation will allow them, no matter if they go to Arizona, Texas, California, it's recognized. And we do encourage our guys. Many of our guys get out, they start working, and they look for that next opportunity, maybe for their company to send them and get that bachelor's degree. or some other way, and we encourage that. And we want to make sure that they get credit for the hard work in the academic area that they put in here, if and when they decide to get that next degree. So those are just some ideas, some of the things that we're doing at the board level to really make sure that we stay relevant. We're relevant now, but we can't sit back and rest on our laurels. We have to continue to look ahead and see what the needs are going to be out there, so that every one of our students, when they graduate, will continue to have these abilities to pick their job and go off and go right into employment.
Yep. Next slide.
All right, so that basically is, that's our program. We recognize, I recognize as somebody that's not being from this area originally and coming here, that not that many people really know about Williamson, which is surprising to me. I get one of two reactions: either, "Oh, Williamson, what a great school," or, "Oh, I've never heard of it." Even in Delaware County, even in Philadelphia. And so part of our idea is that, we really do think we have a great model. We've been working at it for 130 years. It's working well for our group that we're focused on. And so one of the things as we look forward in the future is, we have over 200 acres on our campus. A lot of it is unutilized. And when you have to turn away 300 young men and only take 100 that want to come, and you have to turn away 100 companies that didn't have enough graduates to fulfill their needs, then you realize that we feel an obligation to continue to look for opportunities to expand our resources so that we can bring in more young men, and we can bring in, expand our population and add more trades and grow this school. And we also hope that, people can take a look at us and get to know about us, so that maybe in other places they can build schools like Williamson. We think that, we're really back to the basics in a lot of ways. My father, when he first came to the campus the first time, and he was a high school teacher and a high school principal, and he said, I've been on almost probably 100 college campuses, and he said the thing that's really amazing, it's seeing these young men who are polite and well-mannered and dressed nicely and are friendly, and he said, it's kind of the way it used to be, but you don't see it often anymore, and it's really refreshing to see that at Williamson that's valued. And so we'd invite you all to come take a visit to campus when the students come back. Unfortunately, we had to, like everyone, transition to a distance ed model here in March. Luckily for us, we had that technology upgrade that we've done in the last 2 years with smart classrooms and a learning management system. Made it possible for us to complete the semester successfully using this Canvas system. Certainly, the guys are missing being residents here. They're missing the brotherhood. They're missing the hands-on skills they would get in the shop. So we're finishing up our school year, but we're planning full steam ahead to be bringing in our freshman class in the fall and try to, keeping in mind social distancing and some of the things we'll have to do a little differently, but we fully intend to bring our guys back on campus and get the school year rolling in the fall. So just some things, again, you're welcome to come visit those career fairs. I mentioned the program advisory councils. We're always looking for outside experts to come in and be part of that process to help us. Right now we're designing an electrical program. We have a group of folks that are looking at that. But in each one of our programs, we're looking for people that can really come in and help us make sure that those programs stay on top of the, training the things that are really important in today's workforce and in the future. And I'll just say, it's really hard. The reason we're unique in the nation and the only college that provides a full scholarship to every student is because it's really hard to do that. It costs a lot of money to run a school, and most colleges depend heavily on the revenue that they get from room, board, and tuition from their students. We don't. We have our endowment, but Arlene, who's there with us today, our enhancement director, we have to raise over $2 million a year just to keep the lights on. That's just to meet the gap that we have between the endowment, what the endowment can provide, and what we need to run the school. And so, we believe that if we can get enough people interested to raise those financial resources, that we can start building our endowment to a point where we can start thinking about really expanding our program. So all those are things we would ask, our neighbors here in Delco to consider doing, but especially just share the Williamson story. There are a lot of great stories with these young guys. It's just, when you see a young man walk across the stage and you knew that he was a guy that was living in a car a couple years ago, it's it's something to see him be able to go off and have a great life. So
Yeah, there are so many great stories like that of our graduates, and I always like to say that if you came to campus on the day in August, mid-August, where we bring in our 102 freshmen every year, and you're familiar with the movie The Bad News Bears, you would say, how are they going to possibly convert this group of misfits, if you will, into Williamson men? And the 1,000-day journey begins the next day. They are up at 6 o'clock, and it is literally culture shock to many of them because they've never been held accountable for anything. They've never had to be on time. They don't understand what that means, and they don't understand consequences to not doing what you're supposed to. And hence we lose about 1 out of 4. But what is amazing is that 3 out of 4 rise to the level, and slowly but meticulously, you can see the change in them. And it's not just our shop instructors and our teachers. Our entire staff and administration is dedicated to the mission and does everything they can to make these young men into Williamson men. And they remind them what a Williamson man is. And if they see them doing something wrong, they point it out. So it's literally a village. It's a village that is what it takes to make a Williamson man. And so that day on their senior year at graduation, when they walk across the stage, and then we have this bell that's part of our graduation ceremony. Each one of our graduates rings that bell, and they officially become Williamson men. And it's something they'll have the rest of their lives.
And I would just say too, being a role model is such an important part. And someone like Bill is not unique. Bill, here's a guy that came to Williamson and built this company from the ground up with just him and his wife starting, and now builds 100+ homes a year, based on everything he learned at Williamson and his ability to work hard and do the right thing. He's built a great business. But we have guys that have PhDs that are graduates. We have John Barnes, who's the president of Exelon Generation, who's a graduate. We have Tom Goki, who is the president and CEO of Millicron, thousands of employees. They're Williamson graduates. And so when those guys can stand up in front of our current students and say, hey, I was just like you, guess what? If you stay true to this and you work your way through it and you put the effort in, that you can be as successful or even more successful than me. And for many of our kids, that's the first time they've ever heard that message. And so that's what's really inspiring about it, is when you see these young guys just build this confidence in their own abilities and their ability to go out and make a way in the world for themselves that maybe they never thought was possible before. Again, that connection with our graduates that have been so successful, and their willingness to get involved and to stay involved and to be role models for our guys is what makes it so special, because it's 130 years stretching back of graduates from this school. The first class graduated in 1893. So it's a pretty special thing in that way, as these young men just develop this confidence in what they can achieve in life.
This is awesome. So
that's our story, Trish, I think.
Yeah, this is really cool. So there are a couple questions, and I have a couple of questions for everybody as well. Your graduation rate and career placement numbers are absolutely impressive. I don't think any other organization or institution can mirror those. What would you say, or who is the top employer that some of your graduates go to?
I would say Whiting Turner. Whiting Turner takes, we have employers that come every year that take as many students as will go with them in any shop. It does not matter to them what shop they're in. It does not matter to them, they want Williamson men. And maybe there's a bigger employer than Whiting Turner, but they generally take 5 to 6, and that's because that's all they can get. The other ones are committed for. But when you say the top companies in the United States, we're talking about Boeing. We're talking about all the major construction managers, local ones. Turner, We're talking about all the national home builders, Toll Brothers, Pulte. We're talking about, pharmaceuticals. We're talking about Johnson & Johnson. They want our machinists. So it literally is everybody across the board. And again, Mike's already said it, but what they want is the discipline and the leadership. They know that when they give them a job, first of all, they know they're going to show up on time. And they're going to be able to take orders. And in the not too distant future, they're going to be able to give orders. And they understand accountability. And those are traits that, are sometimes lacking.
Can
Yeah,
you
I would
talk
just
a little
add to that, Exelon is another one for our power plant, Exelon Pico. They grab as many of those power plant guys as they can get. So, but yeah, every year you see the same companies coming back, and that makes us feel good too. And that's what we tell our seniors is, you don't have to pay back this money that we paid. Here's what you need to do. You need to go out there, and whoever you sign on with to work with better be back at the next career fair saying, I need 10 more of those guys. He's killing it. He's doing great work. And generally that is what happens. And that's why the companies keep coming back year after year to hire more guys.
And have those relationships developed into more internship opportunities for the younger guys? Because I can only imagine that an employer comes to the career fair, thinks they're getting somebody, and there's not enough guys to hire. So has that kind of turned into something, or?
Yeah, I would actually say that has become the technique to hire guys, because if you're coming in for a senior, they've got probably a couple offers in their back pocket. I sat down with some carpenters this fall in November before the first career fair, and they were seniors, and I said, hey guys, you excited about the career fair? And they're like, no. I'm like, what do you mean? Every one of those guys had already had a contract signing bonus with the company that they worked for over this summer. So they weren't looking. They were already locked up November of their senior year. They had a job they were going to. And I think that has become, when we have companies that come say, how do I hire one of these guys? You say, you know what? These are young guys that need, we keep pretty good wraps on them during the year, right? They get out on the weekend, they could work some jobs and spring break and stuff. But the summer is when we expect them to go out and hone their skills in their specific trade with a good job and an internship. And that's when they need to make the money, because a lot of our kids don't have some parents that can give them a car and a cell phone and those kind of things. So they need to make money in the summer. And that's what we tell these guys: hire an underclassman, build a relationship with them. And many of those relationships over a couple summers end up in full-time employment. So I would say that the career fair, that's the advice we give to people. And the other advice is to say, if you've hired a Williamson graduate, bring them to the career fair. Because when they see a familiar face and, oh, that guy was a senior when I was a freshman, they'll listen to that guy and say, hey, this is a great company, come work for us. So it has, I think it's kind of neat that that the companies realize that the way to hire a Williamson guy is to invest in them early, try them out, right? And then generally those relationships, they a lot of times go into full-time employment when they graduate.
That's great.
Yeah.
Bill, do you have anything to add, or?
No, it's kind of staggering, honestly, at the salaries that some of our guys are getting to start. We have a company that comes from California called California Boiler. And again, they want to take as many guys out of power plant as they can. They started a few years ago. They got one guy to come. He ended up meeting a girl over the summer, got married out there. But these guys are starting close to $100,000 a year now. For a young man who grew up in a financially challenging environment, you can imagine how that changes their life. But not only their life, we've got like 4 members of our board that are all sons of Williamson men, right? They're not Williamson men themselves in that they didn't actually graduate, but their fathers did. And they talk about the lessons that their father taught them about Williamson, and those same core values, even though they didn't go to Williamson, they're in their hearts and in their souls, because it's what made their father successful, and they just continued on. So it changes the course of generations of Williamson men, not just the graduates, but their kids and their grandkids and so on.
That's awesome. So do you have, and I'm sure you have the statistics, but how many of the Williamson grads go on to start their own companies, successful companies?
You know what? We do not have that number.
I don't know. I don't think we
because I
do,
can
actually.
tell you, every carpenter, every person in the area has the Williamson vanity plate on the front, so you know who they are, and they do tremendous work. So I was curious. So maybe because they are probably one of the more successful independently run businesses, because you do create an atmosphere of discipline, and showing up on time, and just to have that mentality already there, I'm sure it's kind of helped.
Well, and I think it is a large number, and yeah, it's another part that goes along with this, with the associate degree now. So it's, yes, you're learning how to lay brick and cut a board and do all that kind of stuff, and but you're also learning business classes, and you're learning chemistry and math and physics, and you're learning these things that make you able to, just like Bill did, to go out and start your own business, like to actually take that step and be successful at it. So I do think that's a big part of the Williamson graduates, is a lot of entrepreneurial type guys that want to go it on their own, that feel the confidence that they can do that. And they got a great network of guys like Bill and others that they can talk to about how they did that and how they were able to do that.
That's awesome. So, I mean, you do have a tremendous amount of graduates, and I'll ask each of you, is there one story, besides the guy from California, which that stuck out in my mind when I came for a tour, so that's how I asked that question, but is there one story or one person that, that first day in August when they come, you're like, oh, I don't think this guy's going to survive, and then you see him graduate and then do something awesome, like that he just blew you away? Do you each have that special story for somebody?
We probably got 10 of them, but Bill, you can go first.
I can't focus on one individual one. But as Mike said, there are so many. We have three young African American students right now that are triplets that are all in the masonry program. We have a student right now that is a carpenter graduating from Latvia. Grew up in an orphanage in Latvia. How he got to America is a story in and of itself. And this kid is just knocking the cover off the ball with his grades, and he's going to be successful. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And there are literally, 30 or 40 of those stories in each class of 100 students. It's difficult to just single out one or two. Mike's closer to it than I am, because he's there every day, but I'm blown away by it.
That's really true. I mean, there's so many inspirational, and like you mentioned, those triplets, their father passed away their freshman year. He had been sick for a long time, hadn't been able to work, and he passed away their freshman year. And all three of them were in different trade programs, and all three of them are graduating this year. And they're just neat to see that. My favorite is still a guy named Lou Torres, who graduated a couple years ago. We did a story on him. He had dropped out of high school in Philadelphia. Single mother, he never knew his father, and his mother couldn't take care of him and shipped him off to some other relatives. And he was literally living in a car. And somebody in an organization in Philadelphia, I think it was Philadelphia Futures, that knew him and knew about Williamson, and just put him in the car and brought him up here and said, hey, I know you like to work with wood, and this is an opportunity. So he went back, he got his GED, and he enrolled in Williamson 3 years later. And you could see that kid who had no confidence, and you could just see him bloom and develop and grow. And his senior year, I still remember, the carpentry instructor called me over during cleanup week, because the seniors didn't have to be here, cleanup week. And he had gotten a text from Lou. He said, Lou sent me this picture this morning, and it's a picture of his cubicle with his vest and his hard hat and his computer, and he was at work, and he was so happy to be. And so you look at a kid like that, and there's many of them, and you say, what the heck would have happened to this kid if they had not come through here? But now you put him on a whole different trajectory, and now he's out working and doing great things, and he's going to be successful, So that, like Bill said, in every single class, like when you have half of the kids that are Max Pell Grant eligible, that means that they have some serious financial difficulties to overcome, and they might not have had a lot of support at home. And then when they go into their high school counselor and say, I like to work with wood, I like to work with my hands, they say, oh, you're a VOTEC kid. My job is to get you to go to college. And they feel that kind of like not valued, right? What's wrong with me? Why can't, and then when they come to Williamson and they say, look, that gift and talent that you have at working with your hands, that is so good. And it's so in demand. And it's great, people that sit in a cubicle and bang on a computer all day, fine, that's good. But when you can point to something and say, I built that, like I framed that house, like I did that, that's good for the soul. And I think for a lot of our kids, they find their niche. They'd say, wow, this is something I'm good at and it's appreciated. And then, oh, guess what? You can have a great career in this when you leave here too, because there's people falling all over themselves to hire you when you get done.
Yeah. Trish, last year's graduating class, I hired a carpentry senior, started with me, literally graduated Friday, started work with WB Homes on Monday. He was one of 13 children in his family. And unfortunately, his father was a carpenter, fell off scaffolding, became disabled. He was going to vo-tech school, and his carpentry instructor happened to be one of my classmates who was teaching at the Bucks County vo-tech. Told him about Williamson. Obviously, family didn't have the money to send him to college. Came to Williamson, one of 13, and he's working for us now and doing great.
That's awesome. It's just so cool, and it's so amazing to hear the stories. One of the questions in the chat, and I think you can answer this. Can you talk about why it's men only, how it started, how it originated, and why that women aren't included?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we absolutely, from the very beginning, 1880, right? Mr. Williamson was focused on these young men in the streets, and we've always been all male. And people say, well, why? Some people they'll look at that and say, why don't you allow women in? Right now, we really do believe that young guys act a certain way and some guys need a little more opportunity to focus. I mean, in these interviews, I have literally had a guy, we always say, hey, why do you want to come to Williamson? And they have an answer all prepared, and then usually just kind of sit there and wait, and then they have to kind of think on their feet. And I had a kid a couple years ago just kind of leaned back and said, I'm kind of a ladies' man, and it gets me in a lot of trouble, right? And I was trying not to do what you're doing. I'm trying not to laugh, but I'm like, well, okay, I understand it. Now, there is something to that. And, a couple of years ago, we as a staff and faculty had a summer reading assignment. It was called a book called Boys Adrift by Leonard Sachs, who's a behavioral psychologist. And his basic premise was young men today are really struggling. Like girls are kicking their butts and everything. College and it seems like our young men have lost their motivation. Like, why are they not striving for success? Why? And he had a whole bunch of different theories, but at the very end, there was some, if you accept this idea that these young men seem unmotivated, what can we do to get them motivated? What can we do to get them to be successful? And it was a checklist for Williamson. It was small classroom, hands-on, values-based, residential, single sex was one of those things. And we do think, we'd love it if someday we could build a Williamson for women. My wife went to an all-women's college and she loved that experience. But right now, we have, 400 young guys every year that want to come that are less than 20 years old, with a high school degree or a GED, with no dependents, not married and with no kids. So we already turn away 3/4 of the applicants that we have. So I do think that I don't look at it as we discriminate against women in any way. Our mission from our founder was to focus on that segment, young men at the poverty level, and our model is working for them. And so for us, that's what we see as our mission. But we certainly have women faculty and women staff and women dorm managers, and we have women all across the campus. But it's an all male school, and I do think that camaraderie and that. You call it a band of brothers. They feel like a band of brothers and they help each other pull together and get through this.
Thank you. So Arlene, I'm going to turn this one over to you because we talked a lot about the amount of money that it costs to run a school, and the endowment only covers so much. And one of the questions in the chat was, how can the community help? Can you talk a little bit about how important your role is, the challenges that you have, and how we can help?
Absolutely. Thank you, Trish. There are numerous ways individuals can help. One is providing some technical assistance, expertise that you have in an area that we're dealing with curriculum development. We have individuals that give us materials. We have people who are builders give us loads of lumber so our students can do their projects and build the things that they need to build, thereby helping us with our budgets for the shops. There's clearly making a charitable gift. And one of the things that we find that that's very meaningful for individuals is underwriting a scholarship for a student. Since we have to raise a percentage, 30% of every full tuition scholarship for every student, when we get a donor who can help us cover that particular gap, we attach that particular student to that donor. They get to know that young man. They get to communicate with that person. And these stories, become the face of Williamson. To me, that's how people can see how tangible their contributions are.
That's fantastic. Are there any closing thoughts? We're coming into an hour. This hour flew. Are there any closing thoughts that you all want to share with us? Parting words from Williamson? Kind of inspire us a little bit. We need some hope. Come on, Mike, I know you got something.
I would just say that, Pennsylvania is the 47th worst state in the country for college affordability for low-income students. There's only 3 states worse. So Williamson is like literally a shining light. It's like a beacon that literally is saving lives, transforming lives. And so if anyone out there knows somebody, whether it's a relative, whether it's a friend of a friend, and they have a young man that maybe college isn't exactly the right fit for a number of reasons. I'll be honest with you. When I went there 40 years ago, it wasn't that I had any great desire to learn a trade. I didn't have the money to go to college. So it was natural. And I know that that's the case with a lot of guys. But what happens is you get there, you get into this routine, okay? You start forming friendships with guys that are in the exact same position as you and came from the same financial background, and you quickly become a family. And that is what carries the day. And then, as Mike said, you see these graduates that have been out 10 years and you say to yourself, why can't I be like him? And they tell you, you can be like me. You just got to get through the program. And so I can't think of a better way for a young man to invest in themselves than 3 years at Williamson.
Well, this has been fantastic. I want to thank you, Mike, Bill, Arlene. Thank you so much for taking the time to share the Williamson story with us this afternoon. I'll remind the folks that are on our webinar today and those that are going to watch afterwards, if you are interested in finding more out about Williamson or taking a tour, please reach out. You can reach out to the chamber or you can reach out to Williamson directly. There is just an extreme abundance of knowledge and wealth and beauty on the Williamson campus. So I encourage everybody to go check it out and definitely give the Williamson support, because this is definitely the diamond in the rough here in Delaware County. Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. We'll hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Trish. We appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Absolutely.